Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how I kind of modded a set of helping hands. I took two pairs of helping hands and kind of put them together so it made it a little bit more versatile as far as the distance apart where I could put my clamps and how far apart they went, and then you just have a lot more versatility in up and down and then side to side. So a lot of times I like the clamp, and then I like my clamps to be parallel to each other. Now I can just take them, move them as close as I like. It just gives me a little more versatility. Plus, with two ends, it makes it much more steady on the table than just having the one end, and it gives me a lot more room to work with. So I'll show you how I did that, put that together. Okay, at the end of the video, I'm also going to go through how I created these other clamps that are going to clamp onto our helping hands with these 4mm gold connectors on here that just make, when you put them on your helping hands right here, it just makes much better connection into your helping hands, much smoother. You can turn these nice and easy, and this nice big clamp just for, better for holding bigger projects, more sturdy. So I'll also go into that at the end of the video after I show you how I put together this new set of helping hands. So it's just taking the helping hands apart, just undoing the clasps on both of them, clamps that hold on both bases. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a base on each end like this, and we're just going to have one bar. And undo our bars here. We're just going to use one bar now. Okay, so we take out one bar. Now we're going to take this piece in the middle from the other one here, and we're going to use that on our bar. Take that off of here. Okay, we're going to take that off of there. Now we need this slider right here. So now we're going to have two of these sliders on our bar right here, so that way we can position them wherever we want along the bar. Okay, so now we have two of the sliders on the bar. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to connect onto our end bells, which are like our weights to hold it nice and steady. And all you need for that is one of these right here. Put one in here. And the other side, another one of these little clamps right here. Okay, good. So now we basically have our two ends with the weights set up with our bar going through the middle, and now we have two of these clamps clamped on. Now we can move these back and forth wherever we want. Okay, so now all you have to do now is take your clamps right here, and you're going to put your clamps on. You can clamp that on there, tighten our wing nut, and now we have to clamp that in there like that. Okay, now we're going to loosen that, so I can spin that nut to the outside, makes it easier to get to. So make sure your wing nuts are on the outside. These clamps are on the outside, makes it easier to get to. But so now what we have is set up so that we have a nice sturdy base now. We can tighten these however we like to have those tightened so they hold them firm. So we have a nice sturdy base, and now I can move these in and out. I know they sell a set of helping hands that does this, but this is just a cheap way to do it with ones you already have in your workshop probably. Just a handy way to do it. Like what happened with me in this particular case, what I was doing was soldering on these 3.5mm connectors, and they were so far apart, I didn't want to clamp them so far apart. I wanted to be able to clamp the wire very close to where the connector was. So this way, you just clamp it in there like that, and it was holding it much closer now instead of the wire being a mile away. And that's how I reconfigured my set of helping hands. Okay, one other quick mod that I made to my set of helping hands to make them a little bit more useful is I just took one of these little clamps right here that you get at the hardware store or Lowe's or whatever, these were 50 cents, and I converted it into a clamp that I can clamp into my base right here, and just gives me a little bit more holding force for projects that I need to grasp on really strongly. So I'll just show you how I made this little clamp right here. So just using stuff that you might have around your shop if you're an RCer, and that would be these little, I think there's a 4mm connectors, so little solder connectors that we use. So I just use one of these, and we're going to solder it right into there. So what you need to do first of all is, because I'm going to heat it up, you're going to pull off all the rubber connectors off of these things, and we can put those back on there later. But we're going to take off the little rubber handles and the rubber tips right there. So now we got this bare tip. And the next thing I do is I'm going to take a Dremel and I'm going to make a little notch right here in this little section right in here, just so that the connector right here will fit in here really nicely when we solder it. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm just going to take this and solder that in there, and I'll come back in a second and go from there. Okay, now you can see what I did here. I'll zoom in a little bit. I just took this connector right here, notched out a little notch in the back, which is where that's going to fit into right there. And basically now that should just fit in there nicely. So when we line it up, I'm going to go ahead and heat it up and solder it. So heat it up using my little solder microjet. And then I'm going to have my solder here, my basic Radio Shack solder. This doesn't have to be really strong because you're not really clamping it that hard into the vise. So just going to heat that really good. Let that solder flow all the way around there. As you do it, you might have to straighten it out a little bit to make sure it's going to oops like that, see? Just going to solder it, oops. Lots of solder in there. Clamp back in here. And that just clamps in there like that. Our second one is probably a little bit toasty right now, but not too bad. Take that, we started our regular clamp. Clamp that in there like that, and now we have two really nice soldered little clamps right there to hold something a little bit harder in place. Little clamps. And that's it. Okay, I like the way these little tubes I stuck on here, these 4mm connectors, worked in my helping hands so much better than the standard ones that come with your set of helping hands, which is basically an alligator clip. I filled them with solder to make them a little more rigid to stick them in there, but I like the way these ones work so much better that I decided to make them with just alligator clips on them. I had plenty of these little 4mm female connectors around, so what I decided to do is just put this onto my regular alligator clip also. So now this fits in there really nicely. Clamp it right in here. Now they just fit in here really smooth, and then they rotate really easily. You can get them exactly where you want them now, where before they were kind of bumpy because these tubes are so nice and smooth. So I'll just show you basically how I made these. Basically you can pick these up, Radio Shack, hardware store, wherever you get little alligator clips. And I bought a whole pack of them. One of these, a whole pack of them, I paid like $2 for them, these big gator clips. And so basically what you do is pull off the insulation off the connector right here, and you've got to stretch open this connector right here. I just stuck a pair of pliers in there and just stretched it out. So I got it stretched out like this, and then you're just going to fit your 4mm connector right inside there like that. You only need just about that much sticking out to be able to fit into your clamp. So basically just line it up like that, and from there we just heat it up and get some solder on it. And I'll zoom in here a little bit. Zoom in. We're going to heat this up on my solder here. And then we're just using my little microjet torch again. Get it nice and hot. And start throwing down some solder in there. Oops. Putting down the heat on there, it's going to fill it up really nice and solid. A little bit more connection on here. Okay, good. And that's it. So now, when we use these connectors right here, I'll line back up here a little bit. Put them into my helping hands. So now when you put these into your helping hands, they're just so much more smoother the way they rotate. If you need it, just turn just a little bit. Want it turned. The other ones are a little bumpy, so they don't want to turn right. So you just clamp it down nice and tight. You get it exactly where you want it now. This other one's it's not too toasty. Sit it in there, clamp it in there, and now you can rotate your pins here and get them exactly where you like to get them. And just made it a little bit more, and plus it made them a little bit more rigid. Getting them exactly one. So now I have the alligator clips in there, and then I can change those up for those clips. I need something a little bit stronger. Anyway, so that's a couple more things to do with your set of helping hands. Okay, here's an example of how I'm using my new configured helping hands. Because I'm able to put the posts so much closer together, I can do projects like this where I'm basically holding a Dean's connector and I'm putting a 3.5mm connector right onto it. But because I can hold them exactly where I want, and it's very steady on this base, and because I have a lot more versatility in where I can move these arms now, it's a lot easier to clamp on your connector, put it right in where you want to get it, and it'll hold it right there, exactly where you want it while you're doing your soldering. So because I've got it connected up like that, it's a nice sturdy base. I don't have to worry about it when I press on it with the soldering iron. I don't have to worry about it bending away from me or getting out of my control. And basically just heat it up there. Okay, all done. Now I got my handy little Dean's connector. It hooks up to 3.5, so I can quickly check speed control if I need to.